The Galactic Preservation Council had established their academy on 17 different worlds, each one carefully selected to produce the finest peacekeepers in known space. The Earth campus sat hidden beneath the Rocky Mountains, where 300 students from across the stars learned combat theory, diplomatic protocols, and the delicate art of preventing wars before they began. Maya Chen sat in the back corner of Advanced Threat Assessment, her worn notebook open to a page filled with careful handwriting. She never raised her hand during Professor Zelmoth's lectures, never volunteered answers when the massive Krathari instructor posed questions about insurgency tactics or assassination prevention. The other students had learned to ignore her presence entirely. Just another human among the few that Earth had managed to qualify for the prestigious program. Commander Vixen, a decorated officer from the Andromedan Collective, swept into the classroom with his usual dramatic flair. His silver uniform caught the light as he moved, metals clinking softly against his chest. He had volunteered to give a guest lecture on real-world threat scenarios, and the students buzzed with excitement. The commander had personally dismantled 4 major terrorist networks and survived 3 assassination attempts. His stories were legendary. Today, Vixen announced, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into perfect standard. We discuss the most dangerous beings I have encountered in my 40 years of service. Not armies, not fleets. Individual operatives whose skills made them worth entire battalions. He activated the holographic display, and images flickered to life above his palm. The first showed a Zrothian warrior, their forearms clutching different weapons. Krath the Undying personally killed 217 enemies before we captured him. Master of close combat and psychological warfare. The students leaned forward taking notes. Maya's pen moved steadily across her paper, but her expression never changed from its usual calm neutrality. The next image showed a creature that seemed to be made of living shadow. The Phantom of Nexus Station. We never caught them. 17 high-value targets eliminated over 3 years. Never left evidence. Never made a mistake we could track. Vixen continued through his list, each operative more terrifying than the last. Assassins who could change their genetic structure. Hackers who could turn entire planetary defense grids against their owners. Telepaths who killed with thoughts alone. The class hung on every word except for Maya, who simply kept writing. But, Vixen said, his voice dropping lower, there is one name that every intelligence agency in the galaxy knows. One operative that makes even veteran commanders nervous. We call her the Ghost Protocol because for the longest time we believed she was just a myth, a story agencies told to explain their failures. A new image appeared, but it was just a blank silhouette. No features. No identifying marks. The Ghost Protocol has been active for 8 years. In that time, she has been credited with 347 confirmed eliminations, though the real number is likely much higher. Crime lords, corrupt politicians, war criminals, terrorist leaders. If you were dangerous enough and cruel enough, the Ghost would find you. But here's what makes her truly terrifying. Vixen paused for effect, his 3 eyes scanning the classroom. She has never killed an innocent. Not once, not even by accident. Every target was investigated, verified, and deserved what they received. She is not a monster. She is judgment itself, and she is absolutely perfect at what she does. A student near the front, a Kelvorian with blue chitinous armor, raised their hand. Has anyone ever seen her? Do we know what species she is? We have exactly 3 pieces of confirmed information, Vixen replied. 1, she is approximately 1.6 meters tall. 2, she moves with a fluidity that suggests either extensive biomechanical enhancement or a species naturally suited for combat. 3, witnesses who survived encounters with her describe a sense of complete calm, as if she feels no stress or fear while killing. That is not normal, another student whispered. Even the best operatives show some physiological response to combat. Precisely, Vixen agreed. Which is why most agencies believe she is not entirely organic. Perhaps an AI in humanoid form, or a being so heavily modified that little of the original remains. What we know for certain is that she is unstoppable. 16 different intelligence organizations have tried to capture or kill her. All 16 have failed. Some of their best agents never returned from those missions. Maya's pen continued its steady movement across the page. But if anyone had been watching closely, they might have noticed the slight tension in her shoulders, the way her breathing had become more controlled. The Ghost's last known activity was 6 months ago, Vixen continued. She eliminated the entire leadership of the Red Sun cartel in a single night. 23 targets across 4 different planets, all dead within a 6-hour window. The coordination alone should have been impossible for one person. And then, as always, she vanished completely. No trace, no trail, nothing. He deactivated the hologram and faced the class directly. This is the caliber of threat you will face in the field. Not armies you can see coming, not enemies who follow predictable patterns, but individuals who have perfected the art of violence to a degree that seems almost supernatural. Your job will be to prevent people like this from ever existing in the first place, because once someone reaches this level, stopping them becomes nearly impossible. The lecture continued, but Maya had stopped taking notes. Her hand rested on the notebook, still and calm, while Vixen described the psychological profiles of various deadly operatives. She looked like any other student, perhaps a bit tired, certainly unremarkable. Just another human trying to keep up in a universe where Earth was still considered a backwater world with primitive inhabitants. When the class finally ended, students clustered around Vixen, asking questions about his experiences, seeking advice on their future careers. Maya gathered her belongings slowly, methodically placing her notebook in her worn backpack. She waited for the crowd to thin before approaching the door. "Miss Chen," Vixen called out, his voice carrying across the emptying classroom. Maya stopped, turning to face him with the same neutral expression she always wore. "Yes, Commander." "You were very quiet today," he observed, his 3 eyes studying her carefully. "No questions about the ghost protocol?" "Most students find the topic fascinating. I find all the lectures educational," Maya replied softly. "I just prefer to listen rather than speak." Vixen tilted his head, a gesture his species used to express mild curiosity. "You are human, yes? From Earth?" "Yes, sir. Tell me, what do you think of the ghost? Professionally speaking, do you believe one individual can truly be that dangerous?" Maya considered the question for a moment, her face showing nothing of whatever thoughts moved through her mind. "I think humans have a saying, Commander. The quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous. Not because they are hiding something necessarily, but because they are always watching, always learning, always thinking several steps ahead." "An interesting perspective," Vixen said. "Do you consider yourself dangerous, Miss Chen?" A small smile touched Maya's lips, there and gone so quickly it might have been imagined. "I am just a student, Commander, trying to pass my classes and make it to graduation." "Of course." Vixen nodded slowly. "Well, study hard. The galaxy needs good peacekeepers." "Yes, sir. Thank you for the lecture." Maya left the classroom with the same unhurried pace she brought to everything, just another unremarkable student disappearing into the flow of foot traffic in the hallway. Behind her, Vixen stood motionless, his combat-trained instincts whispering warnings he could not quite articulate. Something about the quiet human girl bothered him, but he could not identify what. He pulled up his personal communicator and made a note to review Maya Chen's file more carefully. It was probably nothing, most likely just his paranoia, honed by decades of fighting enemies who hid in plain sight. But in his experience, instincts that kept him alive this long deserved attention. Maya walked through the academy corridors, her expression blank, her movements economical. To anyone watching, she looked like she was heading to her next class or perhaps back to her dormitory. Instead, she made her way to one of the maintenance levels where students rarely ventured. She found an empty supply closet, locked the door behind her, and finally allowed herself to breathe normally. Her hands were steady as she pulled out her communicator, typing in a heavily encrypted code that would bounce her signal through 17 different relay points before reaching its destination. A message appeared on the screen almost immediately. "Status?" it read, Maya typed quickly. "Vixen lectured about Ghost Protocol today. Used old information. No indication they are close to identification. Cover remains secure. Acknowledged. New assignment uploading now? Target is confirmed. Green light for operation." Maya read through the file that appeared on her screen. A Veldorian crime boss who specialized in trafficking children from low-tech worlds. Protected by a private army and political connections. Living in a fortress that supposedly could not be breached. 3 previous attempts to capture him had failed, with the operatives either killed or corrupted. She memorized the details in less than 5 minutes, then deleted. The transport shuttle left the academy at dawn, carrying 12 students approved for weekend leave. Maya sat near the back, her backpack tucked between her feet, reading a data pad that displayed course material on xenopsychology. The other students chatted excitedly about their plans, restaurants they would visit, entertainment districts they wanted to explore, friends and family they would see. Nobody asked Maya about her plans. They never did. The shuttle deposited them at the civilian spaceport in Denver, where the students scattered in different directions. Maya waited until the crowd thinned before making her way to a public transit station. She took 3 different trains, each time doubling back and changing direction, a habit so ingrained she barely thought about it anymore. Surveillance was everywhere in a civilized society, but surveillance systems expected normal patterns. People who behaved erratically, who constantly changed course, drew attention. But someone who simply took a slightly inefficient route while appearing distracted by their data pad, nobody noticed that. She ended up in an older neighborhood where human families had lived for generations, the kind of place where communities still knew each other and watched out for strangers. It was the last place anyone would look for a safe house. Maya walked up to a modest 2-story home with peeling paint and a garden that needed weeding. She used a key hidden under a loose brick to let herself in. The inside of the house told a different story than the outside. The windows had been reinforced with transparent armor. The walls contained signal-dampening material that would make the interior invisible to most scanning technologies. The basement had been converted into an armory and workshop that would make military commanders envious. Maya descended the stairs and began her transformation. The worn student clothes came off, replaced by a skin-tight tactical suit made from Veldorian stealth silk, a material that cost more than most starships. It adapted to ambient light, making her nearly invisible in low-light conditions. Over this, she strapped on armor plates made from collapsed matter, lightweight but capable of stopping most energy weapons. Her boots contained micro-thrusters for enhanced jumping and silent landing. Weapons came next. A plasma knife that could cut through most materials, a neural disruptor pistol, and a rifle that could be assembled from components she would carry separately. But the most important part of her equipment was not a weapon. Maya opened a secure case and removed a small device no bigger than her thumb, the biological mass generator. She placed it against her throat, felt the brief sting as it interfaced with her nervous system, and then watched in the mirror as her appearance began to shift. Her face remained structurally the same, but skin tone changed. Subtle adjustments to the eyes and nose altered her appearance enough that no facial recognition system would match her to Maya Chen. More importantly, the device modified her thermal signature, the way she smelled, even the microscopic traces of DNA she might leave behind. When she was wearing this, she was nobody, a ghost in the truest sense. The trip to Veldoria Prime took 14 hours through commercial space lanes. Maya traveled under one of 17 identities she maintained, each with complete backgrounds, financial histories, and social connections that would withstand deep investigation. This time she was Kira Volm, a freelance security consultant traveling to evaluate protection systems for a wealthy client. Her credentials were impeccable, because she had stolen them from a real security consultant who was currently on an extended vacation in a region with no extranet access. Veldoria Prime glittered beneath its twin suns, a monument to wealth built on the suffering of countless victims. The crime boss she had come to eliminate, Drexer Fane, had constructed his empire over 20 years by identifying vulnerable populations and exploiting them without mercy. His specialty was children from pre-space civilizations, taken quietly and sold to buyers across the galaxy. The Galactic Preservation Council knew about him. Local law enforcement knew about him. But corruption and intimidation kept him untouchable through official channels, which was where Maya came in. She spent the first day conducting reconnaissance, moving through the city like any other tourist. She visited markets, ate at restaurants, took pictures of famous landmarks. But her real attention was on Drexer's fortress, a massive complex that dominated the northern district. 50 guards, all heavily armed, sensor networks that could detect an insect entering the perimeter, automated defense systems capable of shooting down aircraft, multiple redundant security systems, each backing up the others. It looked impregnable, which was exactly what Drexer wanted people to think. Maya sat in a cafe across from the fortress, sipping a drink she had no intention of finishing, and simply watched. She observed the guard rotations, noting who was alert and who was going through the motions. She tracked supply deliveries, counting vehicles and timing their arrivals. She studied the surrounding buildings, identifying sightlines and potential entry points. Most importantly, she watched the people who came and went, learning who belonged and who drew extra scrutiny. By the second day, she had identified her opening. Drexer employed a private chef, a Catharian who traveled to the fortress 3 times per week to prepare meals. The chef had a regular schedule, arriving at precisely 1400 hours, always through the western gate. The supply vehicle was scanned, the chef was verified through biometric checks, and then they were escorted inside under guard supervision. But guards who saw the same person repeatedly, who checked the same vehicle dozens of times without incident, became complacent. They followed the procedures, but their attention wandered. Maya would exploit that wandering attention. She acquired a catering uniform that matched the chef's company colors. She modified a delivery container to include a hidden compartment, just large enough for her to fit inside, surrounded by legitimate supplies that would pass scanning. The trick was not to hide from the sensors completely. That would trigger alarms. Instead, she needed to appear as something harmless, part of the expected background noise that security systems filtered out automatically. On the third day, at 13:55 hours, Maya positioned herself near the western gate. The real chef's vehicle approached right on schedule, and as it slowed for the security checkpoint, Maya moved. She appeared to stumble, dropping a container of supplies that spilled across the roadway directly in the vehicle's path. The chef stopped, and in the moment of distraction as guards moved to clear the obstacle, Maya slipped a small device under the vehicle's chassis. She apologized profusely, helped clean up the mess, and disappeared back into the crowd before anyone could ask questions. The chef continued through the gate, unaware that their vehicle now transmitted a perfect duplicate of its identifying signals. At 1800 hours, when the chef departed, Maya approached the same gate in her own vehicle, which broadcast the stolen identification codes. The guards, seeing what appeared to be the chef returning for something forgotten, waved her through with minimal checking. By the time they realized the real chef had already left hours ago, Maya was inside the fortress. The hidden compartment in her vehicle contained all the equipment she would need. She abandoned the vehicle in a service area and made her way deeper into the complex, moving through maintenance corridors that every large building had but few people paid attention to. Her stealth suit made her nearly invisible to visual observation, and the biological mask generator fooled the automated sensors that checked for intruders. Drexer's private quarters were on the top floor, protected by the most sophisticated security systems money could buy. Maya studied them from a distance, identifying pressure sensors, motion detectors, and automated weapons emplacements. A direct approach would be suicide. But direct approaches were for amateurs. She found the ventilation system access panel and carefully removed it, taking care not to trigger the tamper alerts. The ducts were large enough for her to crawl through, though barely. She moved in absolute silence, her body pressed against the metal, distributing her weight to avoid making noise. It took 40 minutes to reach the section of ductwork that passed through Drexer's quarters. Through the grating, she could see him. The Veldorian crime boss sat at a massive desk, reviewing financial reports on holographic displays. He was alone, which was unusual for someone so paranoid, but even criminals needed private time. 4 guards stood outside his door, and Maya knew there were more stationed throughout this level. She calculated angles, timing, and consequences. She had 3 options for taking him out from her current position. The neural disruptor could kill him instantly through the grating, but the energy signature might trigger alarms. The plasma knife could cut through the grating silently, allowing her to drop down and engage him hand to hand. But that increased risk of things going wrong, or she could wait for a better opportunity, though that meant spending more tea. The Academy's training facility stretched across 50 acres of carefully designed terrain that simulated every possible combat environment. Students spent 3 days per week here, practicing skills they hoped they would never need to use. Today's exercise focused on hostage rescue scenarios, and Maya found herself partnered with Kelvin Thresh, a Krathari student who stood nearly 3 meters tall and possessed strength capable of bending steel. "We should establish clear roles," Kelvin said as they studied the mission briefing. His translator converted his rumbling speech into standard with only a slight delay. "I will handle direct confrontation. You should focus on reconnaissance and support." Maya nodded without arguing. It was the logical division of labor based on their apparent capabilities. Kelvin was built for combat, his armored hide able to withstand weapons fire that would kill most species. Maya was small, physically unimpressive by galactic standards, and had never demonstrated exceptional combat skills in any training exercise. Let him believe she was the weak link in their partnership. It made life simpler. The scenario placed them against 6 hostile targets holding 2 civilians in a warehouse complex. They had 15 minutes to plan and execute. Most teams took the full 15 minutes. Maya and Kelvin needed 7. They moved into the simulation zone, and immediately Kelvin charged forward with the subtlety of an avalanche. The simulated enemies focused on him, which was exactly what Maya had expected. While they poured fire at the massive crathery, Maya slipped through a side entrance that surveillance would have revealed if anyone had been watching their planning phase carefully enough. She moved through the warehouse like smoke, her steps silent, her presence barely registering. The simulation used actual guards, Academy staff members wearing sensor suits that registered hits. They were focused on Kelvin, which meant they never saw Maya approaching. She disabled 2 guards with precise strikes to nerve clusters, not hard enough to actually injure through their protective gear, but registering as successful eliminations on the simulation computer. Kelvin breached the main warehouse door with characteristic force, drawing the attention of the remaining 4 guards. Maya reached the hostages while everyone was distracted, cut their simulated restraints, and guided them to the extraction point. The entire operation took 6 minutes and 40 seconds. The simulation ended, and the guards removed their helmets with expressions of confusion. "How did you get past us?" one of them asked Maya directly. "The sensor showed you entering, but we never detected movement." "I was lucky," Maya replied softly. "You were all watching Kelvin." "Small creatures learn to hide," Kelvin added, though without any malice. She did well for her size. The instructor, a veteran human soldier named Sergeant Morrison, reviewed the tactical replay with a critical eye. He had served in 3 separate peacekeeping operations before joining the Academy staff, and his experience was respected by students and faculty alike. "Acceptable execution," Morrison announced. "Thresh, you performed your role as expected. Chen, your stealth movement was adequate, though you took unnecessary risks approaching the hostages. A more alert enemy would have detected you." "Dismissed." Maya collected her gear and headed for the locker rooms, already thinking about her next assignment. The Ghost Protocol had received a new target, and this one would be considerably more difficult than Drexer. But before she could focus on that, she needed to maintain her cover as an average student with average skills. She was almost to the exit when Commander Vixen appeared, stepping out from an observation room she had not known was occupied. "Miss Chen," he said, his 3 eyes studying her with uncomfortable intensity. "A moment of your time?" Maya stopped, keeping her expression neutral. "Of course, Commander." Vixen gestured for her to follow him into the observation room, which offered a view of the entire training facility through reinforced glass. He closed the door, and suddenly they were alone in a space that felt much too small. "I have been reviewing student files," Vixen began without preamble. "Standard practice for guest instructors. We like to know who we are teaching." "Yes, sir. Your file is interesting, Miss Chen. You arrived at the Academy 18 months ago after passing the entrance examinations with acceptable, but not exceptional scores. Your academic performance has been steady, always in the middle range, never failing, never excelling. Your physical evaluations show adequate fitness for a human of your size and build. Your psychological assessments indicate a stable, introverted personality with no red flags." Maya waited, her hands relaxed at her sides, her breathing calm and even. She knew where this was going. "In short," Vixen continued, "you are exactly average in every measurable way. Do you know what I find interesting about that, Miss Chen?" "No, sir. Nobody is perfectly average at everything. Beings have strengths and weaknesses, areas where they excel and areas where they struggle. But your performance across all metrics is so consistently mediocre that it appears almost deliberate, as if someone were very carefully ensuring they never stood out in any direction." "I am not very talented," Maya said quietly. "I work hard to maintain acceptable performance in all areas." "Perhaps." Vixen moved to the window, looking out at students running through combat drills. "Or perhaps you are the most talented student in this entire academy, and you are hiding it very, very carefully." The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Maya considered her options with the same calm precision she brought to every situation. Vixen was suspicious, but he had no proof. He was testing her, looking for a reaction that would confirm his instincts. The wrong response here could unravel everything. "I am not sure what you are suggesting, Commander," Maya finally said. "If my performance is inadequate, I can work harder. If there is something specific you want me to improve..." "I watched the tactical replay of today's exercise," Vixen interrupted. 3 times, in fact. "Do you know what I noticed?" "No, sir." "You moved through that warehouse with near-perfect efficiency. Your path never crossed any sight lines until you wanted it to. You disabled 2 trained guards, each outweighing you by at least 40 kilograms with single strikes that were placed with surgical precision. And you did all of this while appearing to fumble through the scenario. I was fortunate that Kelvin drew their attention. Luck is not skill, Miss Chen. But skill can be made to look like luck if one is careful enough." Vixen turned from the window to face her directly. "I have spent 40 years hunting the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. I have learned to recognize when someone is hiding their true capabilities. And you, quiet little Maya Chen, are hiding something significant." Maya met his gaze without flinching, without nervousness, without any of the reactions a normal student would show when confronted by a legendary commander. "If you believe I am violating Academy regulations, you should report your concerns to the administration. I would welcome a full investigation of my conduct." "An investigation would find nothing," Vixen said, "because if you are what I suspect you might be, you would have been far too careful to leave evidence. Your cover would be impeccable. Your background would withstand any scrutiny. You would be, for all practical purposes, invisible." "Then what is the purpose of this conversation, Commander?" "Curiosity," Vixen admitted, "and perhaps a warning. You see, I have been thinking about the Ghost Protocol, about the timeline of her activities. She first appeared 8 years ago, but she truly became active at scale about 18 months ago. Before that, there were occasional operations, but nothing like the systematic dismantling of criminal organizations we have seen recently." Maya's expression did not change, but her mind was racing. 8 years ago, she had turned 16 and begun her work. 18 months ago, she had enrolled at the academy. The timeline was not coincidental, and Vixen had made the connection. "The ghost is human," Vixen continued. "We determined that much from biological traces left at early operation sites, before she learned to mask them completely. Human female young, with extensive training in multiple martial disciplines. The Galactic Preservation Council has investigated 17,000 possible candidates across all human-occupied worlds. None matched the profile. Perhaps because she does not exist, Maya suggested. Perhaps the ghost is a collective or an AI or something else that mimics human biology. Perhaps, Vixen agreed. But I do not believe in coincidences, Miss Chen. A human operative who has been working for 8 years would be what age now? Mid-20s? Exactly your age. Someone who wanted to improve their skills might seek training at the premier peacekeeping academy in the galaxy. Someone who wanted to learn about threat assessment and security protocols might sit quietly in lectures, absorbing every detail while revealing nothing about themselves. This is quite a theory, Commander. It is. And I have absolutely no proof to support it, which is why I have not reported my suspicions to anyone. Because if I am wrong, I would be accusing an Inuk. The encrypted message came through during breakfast, hidden inside what appeared to be a routine advertisement for a local restaurant. Maya decoded it while pretending to scroll through social media, her expression showing the same mild boredom as the other students around her who were killing time before morning classes. Target: Senator Vrel Kormath of the Sevian Confederacy. Location: Diplomatic Summit on Nexus Station. Timeline: eliminate within 72 hours. Maya felt her stomach tighten, not with fear but with the understanding that this assignment represented a significant escalation. Nexus Station was the beating heart of galactic diplomacy, where representatives from hundreds of worlds negotiated treaties and resolved conflicts. Security there would be unlike anything she had faced before. Thousands of guards, military-grade sensor networks, AI-driven threat assessment systems, and representatives from intelligence agencies across the galaxy, all watching each other with paranoid intensity. And she had 3 days to infiltrate it, eliminate a sitting senator who would be surrounded by personal security, and escape without leaving evidence. The background file on Senator Kormath arrived in pieces throughout the day, each fragment disguised as innocent data traffic. Maya assembled them mentally, creating a complete picture of her target. Cormath had served in the Civian government for 20 years, presenting himself as a champion of peace and cooperation. Behind that public image, he operated one of the largest weapons trafficking networks in known space. He sold advanced military technology to terrorist groups, supplying wars that killed millions. The evidence against him was conclusive, but he had political immunity and connections deep enough to make prosecution impossible through official channels, which was why Maya's handlers had tagged him for ghost protocol. She submitted a request for personal leave, claiming family emergency. The Academy approved it within hours. Maya had never caused problems, never given them reason to deny her requests. By evening, she was on a commercial transport heading for the neutral zone, where Nexus Station maintained its permanent orbit. Nexus Station resembled a small city floating in space, a massive construct housing diplomatic quarters, conference facilities, residential areas, entertainment districts, and all the support infrastructure needed to keep 50,000 permanent residents and twice that many visitors comfortable. Maya arrived as Dr. Sarah Winters, a xenoanthropologist attending the academic symposium running concurrent to the diplomatic summit. Her credentials were perfect because they were real. She had spent 6 months establishing this identity, publishing papers, building a presence in academic circles, all in anticipation of someday needing exactly this kind of cover. Security cleared her through after the standard biometric scans and luggage inspections. The biological mask generator in her throat remained undetected, its technology decades ahead of anything the scanners were programmed to identify. She checked into her assigned quarters and immediately began reconnaissance. The diplomatic summit occupied the entire northern quadrant of the station, a series of interconnected conference halls and private meeting rooms, where representatives haggled over trade agreements and military alliances. Senator Cormath was attending as part of the Civian delegation, his schedule packed with meetings and public appearances. Getting to him would require bypassing layers of security that had been refined over centuries of diplomatic gatherings. Maya spent the first day mapping the station's layout, identifying maintenance corridors, emergency exits, ventilation systems, and security blind spots. She attended several academic presentations, making polite conversation with other researchers, establishing her presence as unremarkable and exactly where she claimed to be. At night, she accessed the station's infrastructure systems using security exploits she had developed over years of operations. What she found was both encouraging and deeply troubling. The station's security network was sophisticated but predictable, relying on established protocols and procedures that could be exploited by someone with sufficient knowledge. But there were also signs that someone else had been probing the same systems recently, looking for weaknesses with techniques that seemed familiar. Maya pulled up the access logs and felt ice run through her veins. The digital fingerprints matched those from 3 previous operations, where she had barely escaped detection. Someone was tracking her, not the ghost protocol as an abstract entity, but her specifically, following her trail across multiple operations, and they were here on Nexus Station right now. She had 2 choices: abort the mission and disappear, or proceed with the knowledge that she was potentially walking into a trap. Maya considered the implications for exactly 30 seconds before deciding to continue. Senator Cormath was responsible for too many deaths to be allowed to continue operating. If she had to take risks to stop him, then so be it. The second day, she executed her infiltration plan. She volunteered to help set up technical equipment for one of the academic presentations, a role that gave her legitimate access to restricted areas. While moving equipment through maintenance corridors, she planted several devices at strategic locations, data taps that would feed her information about security movements, signal jammers she could activate remotely, and emergency escape routes she could trigger if everything went wrong. That evening, there was a diplomatic reception where Senator Cormath would be making a public appearance. Maya attended as Dr. Winters, wearing elegant clothes appropriate for the event, looking like any other academic excited to be rubbing shoulders with important political figures. She positioned herself near the refreshment tables, observing without appearing to observe. Cormath arrived with 6 bodyguards, all Civian military veterans equipped with weapons that could level a building. He moved through the crowd with practiced charm, shaking hands, making jokes, playing the role of genial statesman. Maya watched his pattern of movement, noting how his guards maintained position, identifying their blind spots and reaction times. She was calculating the optimal approach when someone spoke directly behind her. "Dr. Winters, what a pleasant surprise to see you here." Maya turned and found herself facing Commander Vixen, dressed in formal military attire, 3 eyes fixed on her with unmistakable recognition. "Commander," she said, her voice perfectly controlled despite the adrenaline, spike her biological systems were struggling to suppress. "I did not know you were attending the summit." "Last-minute invitation to serve as a security consultant," Vixen replied, his tone conversational but his gaze calculating. "There have been concerns about potential threats to some of the attending dignitaries. Tell me, are you enjoying the academic symposium?" "Very much. The research being presented is fascinating." "I am sure it is." Vixen accepted a glass of wine from a passing server, his movements casual, but Maya noticed how he had positioned himself to block her direct line to the nearest exit. "I find myself curious, Dr. Winters. Your publications are impressive. 12 papers in the last 6 months on xenoanthropological subjects. Quite productive for someone who is also attending school full-time." Maya felt the trap closing but kept her expression neutral. "I am passionate about my work, clearly. Though I confess when I saw your name on the attendance list, I felt compelled to do some additional research. Dr. Sarah Winters has an impeccable academic record. Excellent credentials and absolutely no photographs in any database prior to 6 months ago, almost as if she did not exist before then. Curious, would you not say? The digital age makes privacy difficult," Maya replied. "Some people prefer to maintain a low profile." "Indeed. Just as some people prefer to maintain multiple identities for different purposes." Vixen took a sip of his wine, his eyes never leaving her face. "I wonder, does the ghost protocol ever feel guilty about the people she kills? Or has she trained herself to feel nothing at all?" The question was delivered softly, almost gently, but its implications were devastating. Vixen was not just suspicious, he knew. He had tracked her here, anticipated her target, and was now confronting her in a public space where she could not easily disappear. "I think you have mistaken me for someone else," Maya said quietly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps I have finally found what intelligence agencies across the galaxy have been searching for. Either way, I find myself in an interesting position. You see, Senator Cormath is indeed a reprehensible being who deserves judgment. I have seen the classified files on his weapons trafficking operations. Millions have died because of technology he has provided to extremist groups, but he has diplomatic immunity and there is no legal way to touch him. Then why are you here?" "Because I wanted to see if you would actually attempt this. Nexus Station is the most secure location in the galaxy. If the Ghost could successfully eliminate a target here, it would prove something I have long suspected, that she is not just skilled, but perhaps the most capable operative who has ever existed." Maya processed his words, trying to understand his angle. "You want me to succeed?" "I want to understand what you are," Vixen corrected. "Are you a we?" The investigation into Senator Cormath's death consumed Nexus Station for 3 days. Maya remained on the station as Dr. Winters, cooperating fully with security interrogations, providing her alibi with calm precision. The investigators found nothing suspicious about her presence. She was exactly what she appeared to be, an academic attending a symposium who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. On the 4th day, they released her along with hundreds of other civilians who had been detained during the lockdown. Maya returned to Earth and resumed her life as a student, attending classes, taking notes, maintaining her mask of normalcy. But something had fundamentally shifted inside her, and she knew it was only a matter of time before she had to make a decision about Vixen's offer. The message came 2 weeks later, delivered through channels so secure that Maya herself had helped design them years ago. Not from Vixen, but from her original handlers, the shadowy organization that had trained her, equipped her, and pointed her at targets for 8 years. New assignment. Priority maximum. Target Commander Vixen. Maya read the message 3 times, her mind rejecting what her eyes were seeing. Kill Vixen? The commander who had offered her a way out? The one person who seemed to understand what she was and accepted it anyway. The justification followed in a subsequent transmission. Vixen knew too much. He had made the connection between Maya Chen and the Ghost Protocol. He represented an unacceptable security risk. Eliminate him before he could share his knowledge with others. Standard operational protocol for compromised agents. For the first time in 8 years, Maya felt something crack in the perfect emotional control she had maintained. They wanted her to kill someone who did not deserve it. Someone who had tried to help her. Someone who had given her a choice instead of trying to capture or kill her. She deleted the message and did not respond. For 3 days she waited, knowing that silence would be interpreted as refusal. On the 4th day, a different message arrived. Your handlers have been compromised. They were never authorized by legitimate authority. You have been weaponized by a criminal organization that hid behind the facade of intelligence work. Everything you believed about your mission was a lie. The message included encrypted files, thousands of pages of documentation that Maya spent 48 hours reviewing and verifying. What she found destroyed every assumption she had built her life around. The organization that had recruited her at 16, that had trained her to be the Ghost Protocol, that had sent her after hundreds of targets over 8 years. They were not a secret government program. They were not elite intelligence operatives working to make the galaxy safer. They were a sophisticated criminal enterprise that eliminated competition and obstacles by convincing operatives like Maya that they were doing righteous work. Some of her targets had genuinely been monsters, but others had been business rivals, political opponents, witnesses who knew too much. She had been a weapon aimed by criminals who understood that the most effective assassins were those who believed they were heroes. The realization hit Maya like a physical blow. She had killed people who did not deserve it. She had been used, manipulated. Everything she had sacrificed, every piece of herself she had given up to become the Ghost Protocol, had been in service of a lie. She sat in her small dormitory room, staring at nothing, feeling the weight of 8 years crushing down on her all at once. How many lives had she taken based on fabricated evidence? How many families had she destroyed because someone paid to have their enemy eliminated? The perfect emotional control that had kept her functional for so long began to fracture, and Maya felt something she had not allowed herself to experience in years: grief. A knock at her door pulled her from the spiral. Maya wiped her face, composed herself, and opened the door to find Commander Vixen standing in the hallway, his expression grave. "May I come in?" he asked gently. Maya stepped aside and Vixen entered, closing the door behind him. He did not speak immediately, instead taking in the state of her room, the encrypted datapad still displaying evidence of her handler's deception, the weapons she had been cleaning and had not bothered to hide, the 1,000-yard stare of someone whose entire world had just collapsed. "You got my message," Vixen said. "It was not a question. You sent it? I have been investigating your handlers for 6 months since I first suspected you might be the Ghost Protocol. It took time to unravel their operation, to gather proof that would convince you I was telling the truth. I am sorry it took so long." "Some of my targets were guilty," Maya said, her voice hollow. "I verified them myself. The evidence was real. Yes, about 60% of them were genuine monsters who deserved what they received. That made the lie more convincing. But the other 40% were innocent beings killed for profit. And you were the weapon they used because you were so good at what you did, and because you believed you were doing the right thing." Maya sat down heavily on her bed, her hands shaking in a way they never had during operations. "What do I do now?" "Now," Vixen said, pulling up a chair to sit across from her. "You make an actual choice. Not one based on lies or manipulation, but one made with full knowledge of what you are choosing. What are my options? Option 1, you walk away. I help you disappear. New identity, new life, somewhere far from all of this. You leave the Ghost Protocol behind and try to find some measure of peace, though I suspect the guilt will follow you wherever you go. Option 2, you let me arrest you. Stand trial for what you have done. Some of those killings were legitimate by any reasonable standard, but others were murder. The court might show mercy given your circumstances, but you would likely spend the rest of your life in prison." Maya nodded slowly. Both options meant the end of everything she had been. "Is there an option 3? "There is." Vixen leaned forward, his 3 eyes intense. "You continue being the Ghost Protocol, but you do it with real oversight. You join the Galactic Preservation Council's Special Operations Division. We give you targets who have been vetted through legitimate channels, confirmed through multiple sources. You still get to stop monsters, but you do it knowing with certainty that they deserve it. And you have a team supporting you instead of manipulating you. Why would you trust me after what I have done? Because despite being used and lied to, you still manage to maintain a moral compass," Vixen said. "The fact that you are devastated right now, That you care about the innocent people who died proves you are not the monster your handlers tried to create. You are a weapon, yes, but a weapon that can choose its own targets. That makes you dangerous in the best possible way. Maya was silent for a long time, processing everything. The idea of walking away was tempting. She could disappear, try to build a normal life, maybe even find happiness. But she knew herself well enough to understand that the guilt would destroy her eventually. She needed to make amends, to use her skills for genuine good instead of walking away from responsibility. Prison was what she deserved, logically. She had killed people, some of them innocent. The law demanded punishment, but rotting in a cell for the rest of her life would not bring anyone back, would not stop other monsters from hurting people. It was justice, but it was wasteful justice. If I join your division, Maya said slowly, I want guarantees. Independent verification of every target. Access to all evidence. The right to refuse any operation I believe is unjustified. And most importantly, I want to help take down my former handlers. Every single one of them needs to answer for what they have done. All of that can be arranged, Vixen agreed. Though I should warn you, special operations is not an easy assignment. You will face targets that make your previous operations look simple. You will work with teammates who may not trust you, at least initially, and you will have oversight, rules, constraints that you have never had to deal with before. Good, Maya said. I have had too much freedom. It led me to trust the wrong people and make terrible mistakes. Structure might actually help. Vixen smiled, though it was a sad expression. You understand that this does not erase what happened? You will have to live with the knowledge of the innocent people who died because of you. That guilt will never fully go away. I know, but maybe I can balance the scales a bit, save more people than I killed. It is not redemption exactly, but it is something. Then welcome to Special Operations, Agent Chen. Your first mission will be helping us dismantle your former organization. They have other operatives like you. Other weapons they have convinced are working for noble causes. We need to free them before they do any more damage. Maya stood, feeling something shift inside her. The ghost protocol had been born from lies and manipulation, but maybe it could be reborn as something genuinely worth being. Maybe she could take the skills that had been forged through trauma and deception and use them to actually make the galaxy safer. When do we start? She asked, as soon as you are ready. But Maya, there is one thing you need to understand. The person you were, the student who sat quietly in class and never drew attention, that person was as much a lie as the ghost protocol. Who you actually are is somewhere Baton, May. 2 years passed since Maya had joined Special Operations, and in that time she had learned something unexpected. Being part of a legitimate team was far more difficult than working alone. Not because the missions were harder, though they certainly were, but because she now had to care about people other than herself. When Krath got injured during a raid, she found herself actually worried about his recovery. When Nexara struggled with the guilt of hacking into civilian systems for intelligence gathering, Maya spent hours talking her through it. When Jin's dark humor masked what was clearly combat fatigue, she recognized the signs because she had experienced them herself. She had become, against all odds and expectations, part of a family. A strange, dysfunctional, heavily armed family, but family nonetheless. Their current mission had brought them to Epsilon Eridani Station, a massive commercial hub where millions of beings conducted business every day. Intelligence indicated that a new player had emerged in the weapons trafficking market, someone who had adopted methods disturbingly similar to the organization Maya had helped dismantle. But this operator was more careful, more sophisticated, and had so far evaded every attempt to identify them. We have a pattern but no face, Vixen explained during their mission briefing. 7 major weapons deals in the last 6 months, each one supplying terrorist groups with technology they should not possess. The deals are coordinated through elaborate cutouts and intermediaries. Money flows through hundreds of dummy corporations, and every time we get close to identifying the source, the trail goes cold. Sounds like someone learned from watching organizations like mine get taken down, Maya observed, studying the data on her display. They are applying similar techniques but avoiding the mistakes that got my former handlers caught. Precisely. Which is why we need you to think like they think. How would you structure an operation like this to make it untraceable? Maya considered the question, her mind slipping back into patterns she had spent 2 years trying to unlearn. Multiple layers of separation between the actual operator and the transactions. Use legitimate businesses as cover for moving materials. Never meet buyers directly. And most importantly, make yourself look like a victim or bystander if investigators get too close. Create false trails that lead to other suspects. Can you find them? Maybe, but I will need to get inside their network. Become a buyer. Make them come to me instead of chasing them. It took 3 weeks to establish her cover. Maya became Kira Shen, a representative of a fictional revolutionary group seeking advanced weapons to overthrow an oppressive government. The background was solid, the credentials perfect, and the story believable enough to attract attention from exactly the kind of suppliers they were looking for. The initial contact came through encrypted channels, carefully worded messages that revealed nothing while promising everything. Maya responded with equal caution, playing the role of a desperate buyer who had resources but limited options. After days of negotiation, an in-person meeting was finally arranged at a neutral location on Epsilon Eridani Station. Maya arrived alone, as requested, though she knew her team was positioned throughout the area, ready to intervene if things went wrong. The meeting place was a private conference room in a hotel catering to business travelers, anonymous and forgettable. She entered to find a single person waiting, a human woman, perhaps 30 years old, with sharp eyes and an air of complete confidence. Kira Shen, the woman said, not offering a hand to shake. Thank you for coming. I represent parties interested in your acquisition needs. Your name? Maya asked, taking the seat across from her. Not relevant. What matters is whether I can provide what you require at prices you can afford. I understand you need weapons capable of countering orbital defense platforms. That is correct. My organization has limited resources but significant motivation. We need technology that will level the playing field against a government with far superior military capabilities. A noble cause, the woman said, though her tone suggested she cared nothing about nobility or causes. I can provide what you need. Plasma torpedoes, shield disruptors, targeting systems that can track ships through hyperspace, all bleeding-edge military technology, guaranteed functional and completely untraceable to your organization. How much? The woman named a price that would bankrupt most small nations. Maya did not flinch. Acceptable, assuming you can demonstrate the equipment's authenticity. I have dealt with suppliers before who promised advanced technology and delivered inferior products. Smart. I can arrange a demonstration. There is a shipment arriving at a private facility in 3 days. You can inspect the merchandise personally before finalizing the transaction. Maya nodded, making mental notes of every detail. The woman's mannerisms, speech patterns, the way she held herself. Something was familiar, but she could not quite place it. Where and when? Details will be transmitted to you through secure channels. Come alone, bring payment authorization, and understand that if you are working with law enforcement, everyone involved will die. I have contingencies that make investigation very expensive for all parties. I am not with law enforcement. I am with people who are tired of being oppressed and are willing to do whatever necessary to change that. Good. Then we will do business. The woman stood, preparing to leave, then paused. Out of curiosity, how did you find me? My organization is very careful about our visibility. I asked around in communities where people need weapons but cannot buy them through legal channels. Your reputation precedes you. They say you are professional, reliable, and expensive. Exactly what I needed, flattering. Though I should mention that reputation cuts both ways. I am also known for eliminating problems before they become threats. If you are not what you claim to be, I will know and you will not survive the discovery. Maya met her eyes without fear or hesitation. I am exactly what I claim to be. Someone willing to do violence to achieve political change. I suspect we understand each other better than you might think. The woman smiled slightly, an expression that did not reach her eyes. Perhaps we do. 3 days, Miss Shen. Do not be late. She left and Maya remained seated, processing what had just happened. There was something deeply unsettling about that woman. Beyond the obvious danger she represented, Maya activated her communicator, signaling her team. Did you get recordings? She asked quietly. Everything, Nexara confirmed. Running facial recognition now. And Maya, I think you should see this. Maya made her way to the team's operations center, a secured room in a different hotel where they had established temporary headquarters. Nexara pulled up holographic displays showing the woman from multiple angles along with data analysis. No matches in any criminal databases, Nexara said. But I ran her image through our archives of past operations. Look at this. A new image appeared beside the woman, A photograph taken 8 years ago during Maya's initial training. A young instructor who had taught her advanced infiltration techniques for exactly 3 months before disappearing from the program. Sarah Kess, Maya breathed. She was one of my trainers. I thought she had been reassigned to another project. According to the files we seized, she walked away from the organization 18 months before it got shut down, Vixen said, studying the comparison images. Intel suggested she had gone legitimate, started working as a security consultant. But it seems she actually started her own operation, applying everything she learned but operating independently. She would have recognized me, Maya said, her mind racing. She trained me, knows my techniques, my patterns. When I showed up as Kira Shen, she must have known it was a cover. Yet she did not expose you, Krath observed. She played along, arranged a meeting, offered to show you her operation. Why? Because she wants something, Maya realized. She is too smart to believe my cover, which means the meeting in 3 days is not about selling weapons. It is about something else. A trap? Jin suggested, possibly. Or maybe she wants to recruit me. Sarah always believed in the work we were doing, even after I learned it was all lies. Maybe she thinks I was compromised by joining legitimate authority, and she wants to bring me back to what she considers the right side. Either way, it is dangerous, Vixen said. We should abort, find another approach. No, Maya said firmly. This is the best chance we will get to take down her operation. She is careful enough that if we spook her now, she will disappear and rebuild somewhere else. I need to go to that meeting and find out what she really wants. Not alone, Vixen insisted. We will insert the team before you arrive. If this is a trap, we will be ready. The next 3 days were spent preparing for every possible scenario. Jin surveyed the facility where the meeting would take place, identifying entry points and escape routes. Nexara hacked into the location's security systems, giving them full access to cameras and sensors. Krath positioned himself in a building with sightlines to the main entrance, his rifle capable of punching through armored walls if necessary. 5 years had transformed Maya Chen from the Ghost Protocol into something she had never imagined she could become. A mentor. The Galactic Preservation Council had expanded its Special Operations Division, recruiting operatives with troubled pasts and exceptional skills, offering them the same choice Vixen had once offered Maya. And somehow, she had been designated as the person responsible for training them. She stood now in the same training facility where she had once pretended to be an average student, watching a new class of recruits struggle through hostage rescue scenarios. But unlike her own training days, these students knew exactly who she was. They had heard the legends, read the declassified files, studied her operations with a mixture of awe and fear. Maya Chen, the former Ghost Protocol, the deadliest operative in galactic history, was now teaching them how to use violence responsibly. The irony was not lost on her. Faster transitions between cover points, she called out, as a Veldorian recruit hesitated mid-movement. Hesitation gets you killed. Commit to the movement or don't make it at all. The recruit adjusted, flowing from one position to another with improved confidence. Maya nodded approval, making notes on her datapad. Teaching was strange, requiring her to articulate instincts that had become second nature over years of operations. How did you explain to someone that they needed to feel the rhythm of combat, to sense when to push and when to wait? How did you teach the difference between necessary force and excessive violence? Agent Chen, a familiar voice called from the observation deck. Maya looked up to see Director Vixen, who had been promoted after successfully reorganizing the entire Special Operations Division. He gestured for her to join him, and Maya left her assistant instructor to continue monitoring the exercise. Director, she greeted him formally. Though after years of working together, the titles felt awkward. What brings you to basic training? Nostalgia, perhaps. Watching you teach reminds me of when you were the student sitting quietly in the back, fooling everyone into thinking you were unremarkable. Vixen's 3 eyes gleamed with amusement. Though I am actually here because we have a situation that requires your specific expertise. New target? Not exactly. More of a recruitment opportunity, though it is complicated. There is an operative working in the outer colonies, someone with a pattern disturbingly similar to your own early operations. Young, human, incredibly skilled, and apparently working alone with no clear support structure or oversight. She has eliminated 17 targets in the last 6 months, all of them criminals. all kills executed with precision that suggests professional training. Maya felt ice run through her veins. Another ghost protocol? Another young person being used as a weapon by criminals pretending to be heroes. Do we know who she works for? That is the complicated part. We do not think she works for anyone. Intelligence suggests she is genuinely independent, choosing her own targets based on her own investigation, which makes her either incredibly dangerous or incredibly vulnerable, depending on how you look at it. She is a child, Maya said, already knowing the answer. 16, maybe 17 years old, trained by someone who knew what they were doing, convinced she is fighting for justice. 18 actually, though your assessment is otherwise accurate. Her name is Yuki Tanaka, and she operates in the Outer Rim territories where law enforcement is minimal, and criminal organizations run unchecked. She has been targeting gang leaders, corrupt officials, and slavers, all legitimate threats, all beings who probably deserved what they received. But operating without oversight, without verification, choosing her own targets based on her own judgment. Maya closed her eyes briefly, seeing herself 8 years ago, so certain she was doing the right thing. She will eventually make a mistake. Kill someone who does not deserve it, or she will be captured and tortured for information she does not have, or she will simply burn out from carrying that weight alone. Which is why I want you to recruit her, talk to her, offer her what I offered you. Give her a chance to do this work properly with support and structure before she ends up dead or broken. What if she refuses? What if she is too committed to her path to consider alternatives? Then we evaluate whether she represents a threat that needs containment. But I would prefer to avoid that outcome if possible. The galaxy needs people with her skills and apparent moral compass. We just need to channel them appropriately. Maya understood what Vixen was really asking. Go find this girl. Save her from becoming what you almost became. Give her the intervention you wish you had received years earlier. It was as much therapy for Maya as it was recruitment for the council. Where do I find her? Tau Ceti 4, a colony world with minimal infrastructure and maximum corruption. She was last seen there 3 days ago. Intel suggests she is tracking a slaver network that operates throughout the sector. If you want to intercept her, that would be the logical place. Maya nodded slowly, already planning her approach. I will need to go alone. She will run if she sees an official team, and she will definitely run if she recognizes me from public records. I need to be someone she can relate to before I reveal who I really am. Agreed. But Maya, be careful. Everything we know about this girl suggests she is fast, skilled, and paranoid. If she perceives you as a threat, she will react accordingly. I know, because that is exactly what I would have done at her age. 3 days later, Maya arrived on Tau Ceti 4 under the identity of Keiko Sato, a journalist investigating human trafficking in the Outer Rim. The cover was solid, the background legitimate, and the reason for her presence exactly the kind of thing that would put her in proximity to Yuki Tanaka's operations. The colony was everything she had expected: dirty, desperate, and controlled by criminal organizations that operated openly because nobody had the power or will to stop them. Maya made contact with local resistance groups, people who fought the slavers with whatever resources they could scrape together. They were suspicious at first, but her knowledge of investigative journalism and genuine interest in their cause earned their cautious cooperation. There have been changes recently. One resistance leader told her over cheap alcohol in a bar that smelled of industrial lubricants and broken dreams. The slavers are nervous. 3 of their leaders have been killed in the last month, all of them in ways that suggest professional hits. We thought maybe the council had finally sent enforcers, but there has been no official presence. Vigilante? Maya suggested, knowing the answer. Maybe, or maybe one of the gangs is consolidating power by eliminating competition. Either way, it is making things dangerous. When criminals get scared, innocent people get caught in the crossfire. Maya gathered intelligence for 2 days, mapping the local criminal networks, identifying potential targets and looking for patterns. She found them eventually. The kills followed a specific methodology. High-value targets eliminated with precision, minimal collateral damage, and no evidence left behind. It was professional work, almost too professional for an 18-year-old operating alone. She set a trap, not for Yuki, but for the next logical target, a slaver named Reckon who operated a processing facility in the industrial sector. Maya made it known through carefully placed rumors that Reckon was moving his operation, that he would be vulnerable during the transition. Then she positioned herself in a building with sight lines to the facility and waited. Yuki appeared at midnight, moving through shadows with a grace that reminded Maya painfully of her younger self. The girl was small, barely visible in the darkness, but her movements were economical and purposeful. She had clearly studied the facility, knew the guard rotations, and had planned her approach with care. Maya watched through her scope, not interfering, just observing. Yuki breached the facility through a maintenance entrance, exactly the approach Maya would have chosen. She bypassed security systems with tools that suggested significant technical knowledge, and when she encountered guards, she disabled them with strikes that were precise but non-lethal. The girl was not indiscriminately violent. She had rules, restraint, a code she followed even while breaking laws. Maya waited until Yuki had reached Reckon's office before making her move. She entered the facility through a different entrance, taking a parallel path that would intersect with Yuki's position. By the time she reached the office, Yuki had Reckon at gunpoint, demanding confessions about his operations, extracting information about the wider trafficking network. "You are very thorough," Maya said from the doorway, her voice calm and non-threatening. "But you should have checked the building more carefully. Never assume you are the only professional operating in the area." Yuki spun, her weapon tracking toward Maya with speed that was genuinely impressive. "Who are you?" "Someone like you. Someone who understands why you are doing this and wants to help you do it better." Maya kept her hands visible, making no aggressive movements. "My name is Keiko, and I am not here to stop you. I am here to talk." "Journalists do not usually carry military-grade weapons," Yuki observed, her eyes flicking to the pistol visible at Maya's hip. "Try again."